Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Jason Suchomel with Cole Patterson, back again on our Orange Bloods YouTube channel for another recruiting podcast. We keep saying it, our counting down to signing day. We're going to be turning this calendar over to December before we know it. And then it's literally, we're counting down each individual day up until December 15th when Texas will sign, I think, the bulk of their recruiting class. That's usually what happens. Steve Sarkisian said this week. Coley said on Monday, he goes, usually we'll sign most all of their guys on in that early class. They'll have some late guys that will sign in the February, not February window. It's a one-day period in February, of course. But let's there's a few things we want to talk about this week, Cole. I mentioned Sark, and where better to start than to talk kind of big picture speaking. I mean, here we are. I feel like a broken record. We've done these the last few weeks, and we're talking about Texas coming off of a loss. And Texas comes off another disappointing loss, this time at West Virginia. 6 losses in a row. Never in my wildest dreams thought we'd be talking about that. I find it interesting. Sark was asked on Monday, and I love when he's asked these recruiting questions at his press conferences instead of philosophical stuff. And someone asked him directly, like, hey, is it going to be hard to recruit elite players? Sark said, hey, I don't really think it is. He goes, they see our vision. They know it's year one and it's a rebuild process. I don't feel like we've seen a lot of negative kickback from this losing streak. I don't think it's necessarily helping with a lot of guys, but it hasn't been catastrophic like you would maybe think a 6-game winning streak could be. You've talked to a lot of guys. We'll kind of dig into some of those in a little bit. Kind of your thoughts on Sark's response to that, where he didn't seem too worried about this losing streak and their overall performance hurting their recruiting class this year.
Yeah, like I said, we'll get into who I got to see last week, but yeah, you would think, like you said, 6-game losing streak would be like horrible for recruiting, and it seems like most cases it is. In most programs, if you have that bad of a losing streak, like Florida State went through a losing streak earlier this season. A lot of their guys jumped ship, stuff like that. But for whatever reason, it almost seems like Texas has some momentum going into December, especially along the offensive line. Some of their top guys. I think because of the losing streak, the players are seeing, hey, we can come in right away and play early. We can come in and kind of get Texas back to where Texas is supposed to be, where Sarkisian is telling them Texas needs to be. So, I mean, obviously you don't want to lose, especially with those kind of prospects in town, seeing your team up close and personal. But, yeah, I mean, from people we've talked to, me and you've talked to, it doesn't seem like it's, the worst case scenario.
Yeah, and it's not just Sark. I mean, you kind of expect him to give that response in a press conference, right? He's not going to say, oh, yeah, it's terrible. Things are going to be awful, but, we talk to recruits, talk to other sources around the program, and nobody I've talked to seems to be panicking. Now, he did bring up what I thought was a good point. He said, hey, if we're having this conversation in year 3 or 4, then yeah, that's a problem. But it's year one, and these guys know this is a rebuild, and they've got to, change their culture and get their guys in there. And all of that seems to be true, right? And it seems to be resonating with these recruits. But I do kind of think it's a bit of a crutch that Texas is using this year when they are talking to these recruits. Nobody was talking about having to change the culture before the season started. Sark thought they had a really good team that was going to compete for championships. Nobody was talking about it when at halftime of the Oklahoma game when Texas is up, and we're all thinking, oh, my goodness, it's going to be a windfall of recruits, and look what Sark's doing with these players. Now they're not coaching them well or whatever. The players aren't playing well, whoever you want to place the blame on, they're losing. And now you've got the athletic director coming on, with statements. You've got Sark, of course, addressing it, saying, it's year one. We knew this was going to be a long rebuild. Well, I don't know. Sounds a bit of an excuse making to me, but hey, if you're a good recruiter, that's kind of what you do. You've got to be able to sell what's available to sell. And you've talked to guys, I've talked to guys. It seems like recruits are actually buying into that pitch, saying they're not that far off. We get it. Their record stinks, but they've been in these games. They've been close. They just need a couple other players to get over the hump at key positions. And maybe I can be the guy. I mean, you kind of sense the same vibe in talking to some of these 2022s and even 2023 guys, huh?
Yeah, like I saw Jontay Cook last week. Got to talk to him. He's one of the bigger targets for Texas. wide receiver out of DeSoto, and he asked, we had a couple other guys. We were talking to him, and he asked us if Texas had won. He had a playoff game on Saturday. They beat Rockwall. He was like, hey, did Texas win? We kind of had to break the news, and they lost to West Virginia. And his reaction, he stepped back. You could tell he was disappointed, but he was like, man, first thing he says, like, man, they just need better players. And I asked, I was like, do you still believe in the scheme? Do you like Sark? All that kind of stuff. And he's like, yeah, the scheme works. Just look at the players. Just look at the plays he's calling. He pointed to Xavier Worthy's success. He's like, if they get an Evan Stewart this year, if they get, me and, Arch Manning in the building, and things can turn around pretty quickly. He still really high on Texas. Obviously he wants to see Texas win. One thing that stood out to me that he said it was interesting was A&M has the players, but not the scheme. Texas has a scheme, but not the players. So that's kind of something that kind of stood out to me, is that he sees the bigger picture. And I think Sark's, like you said, selling him on that, kind of have to do that as a good recruiter. But yeah, kind of in the Baylor game, we saw some drops in that game. The Oklahoma game, they couldn't close it out. But they were in those games. They should have won the Oklahoma State game. We could talk about Kansas and all of that. The opportunity to beat West Virginia. Even beating Iowa State at halftime. They've been in position to win games. I think recruits are seeing that. And I saw Devon Campbell, I guess early last week, and he kind of said something similar, that he believes in the offensive system. He believes in what the vision is. It's just they need better players, better talent. I think that's what a lot of these guys are seeing, that they can come in. It's kind of cliche to say, hey, these guys can come in right away and contribute. But in Texas's case, like, they really need guys that can come in and contribute early. And I think they're doing a really good job selling that. Some of that, like you said, could be an excuse, for the losing and stuff. But some of it is true. We can see with their own eyes that they need some upgrades on the offensive line. They could use some more consistent quarterback play, need more weapons outside of Xavier Worthy. So I think that's really resonating with guys. Malik Muhammad is another guy. He's a DB from South Oak Cliff. He said the offense has proven that they can score a lot of points. They put up 70 points. They put up 50 points. He said the defense has shown signs, but again, the defense needs more talent. He told me, he said once the defense gets to that level, then Texas can be really unstoppable. I think that message is resonating with them, that Texas is telling them, hey, we need guys to come in. These aren't our players that we recruited. You can come in, you kind of fit what we want in our scheme, you kind of fit what we want in our culture, and you can help turn around Texas and take them to the next level. And, that's a pretty big sell. Texas is the biggest brand, maybe in all of college sports. You're playing for the capital and the state on the big scene, NIL deals, all of that. It's a big sell that they're selling them. I think a lot of the guys are buying it.
It's interesting when I hear them say that we haven't had our guys in here. The coaches are saying that, and it's kind of throwing the current players under the bus. You're basically saying, hey, they're not good enough, or they're not mentally what we want them to be. But every coach does it. Especially, listen, if you're struggling in year one, every coach does it, so it's no different there. But
you have to, yeah.
Yeah, and I want to circle back to DJ Campbell. My days and weeks are running together. So that was this week you went and saw DJ, correct?
This past week, it was like on Monday.
Okay,
right after the Kansas game.
Okay, talk about your, obviously he's a key player, and then I want to talk about him, and you mentioned quarterback, and then I'll talk a little bit about Maalik Murphy. I talked to Malik this weekend. So your vibe on DJ, I know we've talked about him quite a bit, but there's arguably not a more important player left on the board for Texas. So your vibe on talking to him in the midst of this losing streak. It didn't seem like it is a backbreaker for DJ Campbell either.
No, I asked him about the losing streak. Obviously, that was before, it got to 6 games. But still a 5-game losing streak coming off a loss to Kansas. Can't really get too much worse than that. But, he said that, he's not looking at a program for wins or losses. He's not looking at, pitches or, being a celebrity or anything like that. He just likes to sit in the film room and be better. And he said that Kyle Flood's done as good of a job, not better than anybody else has, recruiting him, teaching him how he can be better, showing him in the film room that he can get better at these techniques. He told me that, some coaches will show him all the highlights of either his plays or their own players. These are all the things he does well. But he said Floyd actually showed him what Campbell needs to work on, and it wasn't a negative thing at all. It was just, hey, if you do this, you can become this much better. If you do that, then you're going to be even more successful. And I think that really resonated with him. He said he didn't really care about the winner or the loss when he was there in the stadium. It was more of just being around the coaches, being in Austin. You got to be around NATO. You got to be around Kevin Banks. You got to be around Cam Dewberry. And I think he told me the message to all of them right now is, hey, come in, be big contributors on the offensive line earlier than later, and make a big difference. And that's really standing out to him. I think Texas is in a great spot. I got the impression it's a 2-horse race. I think Oklahoma's that other team that's in it with him, but it's kind of like what I get with Jontay. I think Jontay Cook is looking for a reason to choose Texas. I kind of get the impression that Campbell's under the same thing, that I think Texas is in a great spot. Losing streak doesn't help, but I think he wants to go to Texas. It's kind of what I got. They just need to give him a reason to choose Texas.
Yeah. Obviously, he would be a huge get if they can get him. Maybe he's a guy that can help build some momentum somewhere else. And before I transition to Maalik Murphy, I'll say this. I mean, yes, I don't think this 6-game losing streak has been disastrous, catastrophic for Texas, but they still need to try to win this last game in a big way to finish with a little bit of positive momentum. It almost feels like these losses, you keep stacking them on top of each other, right? And you're like, okay, doesn't hurt too much, but eventually that dam's going to break. You've got to start winning at some point and, maybe end the season, put a good taste in their mouth, go out with a good performance on both sides of the ball this week and get a win against a pretty good Kansas State team that's coming in, I think, ripe for the picking because they're beat up too. But I'll talk a little bit about Maalik Murphy, the Texas quarterback commitment out of California. I did speak with Malik at length on Sunday over the phone. He's got his team in the state championship this week. They'll play on Saturday. Or no, I think it's Friday night, actually, because I was like, I might try to. No, I think it's Saturday. I'm getting my days confused. But regardless, he's got his team in the state championship this weekend. How about that? Which is pretty impressive, because it's Malik's first year as a starter was last year, his junior year. Well, it was a shortened spring season because of COVID. His sophomore year, he got a few throws here and there, but you could always see the physical tools with Maalik. Well, this kind of has been his first year to go through a full off season. He's had a good, for a full season. I think the team started 1-3. Malik Murphy gets injured, hurts his clavicle, ends up missing a couple weeks. He comes back, and I think they've won 7 out of their last 8, I believe it is, now going for a state championship. And he's played, exceptionally well. And Malik and I were talking about just the culture. And I said, it kind of parallels almost what's happening at Texas. Year 1's a struggle. Year 2 is a little bit better. Year 3, they're playing for a championship. And I asked Malik, I said, well, how were you able to kind of stay the course and trust the process and buy in? And he said, man, he said, it really wasn't that hard. He goes, we have a good group of teammates. And it was a lot of locker room talk, which I found interesting. He said they had teams in the past where they had a bunch of Division I players and they just weren't as good. This year, they've got Maalik Murphy, and they've got a junior defensive back who has scholarship offers, including an offer from Texas. Nobody else on that team is going Division I. But he said, you know what? It's kind of been a blessing in disguise. These guys have really bonded together. They've worked their tails off. But it's really refreshing to talk to Malik just about his perspective. He goes, man, I've been through this before. I had to sit for 2 years at Gardena Serra because of the quarterback we had, and then I kind of got in and things weren't great, and their team wasn't very good last year. And so he goes, this is nothing new for me. He goes, I'm coming to Austin in January. He's going to roll in January, A, with the mindset of being a big part of changing that culture, B, with the mind, he's coming in to compete right off the bat, man. He goes, hey, I want the best man to win the job. If that's Casey or Hudson or me or whoever else, or if they're bringing another quarterback, he goes, I'm coming in with the mindset, I want to be the best teammate I can be. I want to win that job. I want it to be me. I'm not going to doubt the guy. Texas's quarterback play this year has been up and down. Sark said on Monday, he goes, someone asked him about the possibility of next year's quarterback not being on the roster right now. And he goes, yeah, it's possible. Transfer portal or a high school guy, meaning Malik Murphy, maybe Devin Brown if he winds up coming. But it was really, I'd say, Malik, I've been doing this a long time, Cole. I mean, 20 years almost with the Orange Bloods. In March, it'll be 20 years with Orange Bloods. And I was covering recruiting before that. And I said it this week. I was like, Malik probably will go down as one of my favorite players to ever cover. He's just man, you walk away feeling good after you talk to Malik Murphy, man. He's a big time player. You would never know it talking to him. He likes to build people up around him. I've seen him in competitive environments where, I mean, he just fills the room, but he fills the arena, and guys are drawn to him. I'm not going to doubt Malik Murphy, and I'm not going to just go through everything he and I talked about, but I would encourage people, go on to orangebloods.com. It's in my 3-2-1 column that I posted on Monday night. It's really a refreshing read from Malik Murphy, and a lot of our readers on Orange Bloods read that. They read similar comments from Connor Robertson at Westlake, his leadership mentality. Now he wants to carry some of what he's learned at Westlake, who's going for their third straight consecutive state championship. He goes, I want to carry some of those things I've learned over to the Texas locker room. And both these guys get it. They say, hey, I can't just walk in day one and try to throw my weight around. I've got to earn some respect and, bide my time or whatever it is. But
that's huge for Texas, to have those kind of guys.
There's a lot of them in this class. Yeah.
I've talked to other recruits, and they all point out Malik Murphy is the guy that they all are drawn to. Everybody from Harold Perkins to Cole Hudson, they all go back to Malik Murphy. And Texas needs a guy like that.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I remember someone told me about Malik, how he just, like I said, kind of fills up a room. Okay. And then when I first saw Malik, I was out in Las Vegas for this Pylon 7-on-7 big national tournament. And all these teams are there and all these good players and some 5-star players. And you're like, okay, that guy's really good. That guy's really good. When Malik Murphy's team walked into that gym, and I remember Malik was dressed head to toe all white. And Malik's like 6'5", and I mean, he's filled out. I mean, he's not a small quarterback. But it's true, man. When he walked into this arena, Cole, it was like a rock star showed up, man. So, and it's not because he's cocky or arrogant or any of that. And when he's playing games at the National 7-on-7 tournament, guys from other teams were sticking around to watch Malik Murphy. Guys who didn't really know him, they knew of him, but he just has an aura about him that draws people to him. But yeah, that 3-2-1 column, I kind of enjoyed talking to Malik and Connor. I would encourage anybody who's on Orange Bloods to go read it. If you're not on Orange Bloods, go check it out. In fact, we're going to have a promo later this week. If you're not on Orange Bloods, stay tuned. Friday is going to be a great time for anybody who's watching this and not on Orange Bloods. Check it out on Friday. We'll have a great promo for you guys to kind of get you drawn in and see what we have to offer. But a lot of our subscribers, when I posted that story, are like, oh my goodness, thank goodness for Malik Murphy and Connor Robertson. And they were like, it really made them feel like we needed some positive news, and those guys give us a glimmer of hope. I feel like we have some hope. So,
yeah, sure.
But it was good to talk to Malik. But so this week they got their last game. Cole and I will be back probably early next week. We'll do another one of these. It's not going to be a big recruiting weekend in terms of guys on campus. I think Matthew Golden, the receiver from Klein Kane, is coming in to watch the game. There'll be some other guys there, I'm sure, but it's an early game Friday at 11 a.m. So not a huge recruiting turnout, but Cole will be out and about this weekend. I'll be beating the bushes this weekend and making some calls to see what we can round up. So please come back and check us out next week. Hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell, do all those things, get the notifications for your Orange Bloods recruiting podcast or videos. We've got the modcast that we'll do this week and a bunch of other videos as well. So appreciate everybody tuning in. Appreciate you, Cole, giving me some of your time at the very last minute.
Thank you.
I hit Cole up without much notice. So put this together before Thanksgiving gets too hectic for us. But thanks everybody for watching. For Cole Patterson, I'm Jason Suchomel. We will talk to you soon.